Welcome to the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast, presented to you by Hetra University. If you've landed here, you're probably passionate about how horses help people. Whether you're an instructor, therapist, in the business, or have experienced equine assisted services yourself, we're glad you're here. Join us as we talk about the benefits, the science, to-dos, how-tos, and all of the reasons why what we do is so much more than just a pony ride. And now, from the Hetra campus in Gretna, Nebraska, here's your host, occupational therapist Katie King.
Welcome, Alison. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Katie, for having me.
I'm excited to share your story with our audience today and how it can help everybody that's listening right now. So why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do and how you ended up here?
Well, my name is Alison Curtis, and I am the owner-operator of Equiharmony Wellness, where I teach yoga for equestrians. And let's see, how did I get here? I grew up horse crazy, but we lived in the city, and my parents just thought having a horse was not appropriate for their daughter. Senior year in high school, my graduation gift was riding lessons at a local Arabian farm. And so I was finally able to ride, and little did my parents know what they had unleashed with just riding lessons, because it turned into, when I went to college, I started riding with a dressage instructor and became her assistant. And then I actually came to Hetra and started volunteering.
Awesome.
And I think I was there, I was probably less than a month. I think it was actually my second time out there. And Edie approached me and said, we have this 3-year-old quarter horse mare that she's been under saddle, but that's it. She's completely green. How would you feel about leasing her and riding her? And I was like, that sounds great. And so thanks to Edie and the Bevington family, I got that mare. Her name is Sable's Perfection, and she's still with me here in Nebraska or in Virginia. She's 23, and I continued to volunteer with Hetra while I was still in Nebraska. And then in 2015 or 2014, I moved to Virginia and brought Sable with me. I continued to ride. I apprenticed and was a working student for several dressage trainers in the area around Washington, D.C. And after we were here for a year, one of my mares, not Sable, but another one, she contracted Lyme disease, and it was pretty severe neurological. We treated her, but she just always had a lot of sensitivity issues, and riding her and being able to work with her was really difficult because her personality, things that would bother her were constantly changing. And I kept thinking to myself, what can I do to connect with her in a better way, like to make riding more easeful and to keep myself calm when she would kind of spin out of control. And I found a yoga for equestrians class in the town nearby. And I had kind of dabbled in yoga here and there, but nothing really, nothing serious. And So I started taking the class, and I realized that it really did make a difference in just how I was with my horses. I felt a lot better. I was riding Sable, and it really changed how I was able to ride her. My aids were more effective. And then a year after that, I got Lyme disease, and it was extremely severe. Went one day from, oh, I have this tick bite, to the next day I'm having seizures and I'm in bed. And that lasted for 5 years of
Wow.
treatment. And it was neurological. So I had lost a, a lot of my function to be able to think logically, to my anxiety was like out of control. My balance wasn't good. I could hardly walk. I had to use a walker for a time because I couldn't walk. If I would sit up too fast, I would pass out. It was just a whole like laundry list of problems, and
Yeah.
I was not able to do anything other than just feed my horses was pretty much it. And that was like agonizing, but I was determined that no matter how sick I was, they were my horses, and I was going to be out there with them every day. Even though I would come in tears a lot, but I did it. And early on in my illness, I started working with a private yoga instructor because my body just felt so out of control. Like I was hurting everywhere. I couldn't breathe. It was just so much. And so I worked with her privately for several months. But then my illness just got too bad. And so as time goes on, I'm sick and I have IV poured in. And as I started to get better, I was thinking, how can I get myself, how am I ever going to ride a horse again? Like I can barely walk. And when I walk towards the right. Like I can't help myself. I just walk towards the right.
Mm.
I'm dizzy all the time. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try yoga. And so I started doing yoga every day for 30 minutes. And it was excruciating at first, but I mean, I believe it saved me. I don't think I would be here healthy, happy, and riding my horses had it not been for being dedicated to my yoga practice, which helped me physically as well as mentally. And then I went on to get my 200-hour certification and my 500-hour certification. But as I'm doing all this and working with my horses, I'm realizing like something has really shifted. Like the way I ride and the way I interact with my horses and the way they interact with me had really changed. I attribute that to yoga. I mean, it may sound crazy, but it really there has been a huge shift in my horses and myself.
I'm a yogi as well, so I'm a believer in the power of it. I always say my body needs yoga, but more than my body, it's my mind. Like it really is a shift, a mind shift to practice yoga. And it's hard physically, right? I mean, you can adjust that and you can modify and you can do a lot of things to make it easier for your body. But for some people, it's really hard to get their mind to practice yoga as well, because you have to slow it down and think about what you're doing. And can you speak to that?
I think that really helped. I think it's becoming that really focusing on your breath being your guide and letting all the stuff go. Like not thinking you have to have a perfect pose. And I think that's the problem a lot of people have when they start. It can kind of be overwhelming because you think, oh, I should look like that, and there is no way for somebody to look in yoga. I mean, I always tell people when I teach, like, your pose may look absolutely nothing like what I'm doing. But if it feels good to you and you can breathe and you're noticing tension starting to release, that's all that matters. So I think I think it's just really that bringing that awareness to your body, to where you notice things that translate to when you sit on a horse and you're now used to how your body should feel. And you're sitting on a horse and you're like, gosh, it really feels like I'm like dropping my right hip.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I now have the strength to be able to correct that myself, instead of my instructor yelling at me to do it, but I don't know how to do it.
Right. I can't get over how much body awareness yoga builds. So I grew up riding very not pretty, I guess, in a kind of a ranch seat. And so when I started taking lessons to ride more pretty, to pass my CTRI certification, I was really thinking a lot about how many tiny muscle groups and tiny adjustments to, either one side of your body and not the other side. Like you said, maybe it's your right hip, maybe it's your left lower leg or whatever it is. And I just remember thinking like, oh, it's like in yoga when you think you're in a really great posture or whatever, and then your instructor says one thing like lift through your belly or lift through your collarbones or whatever they say.
Mm-hmm.
And you can physically feel yourself making those adjustments. And I just remember thinking like, wow, this is very much like yoga, and really isolating out those parts of your body is hard if you haven't practiced that before.
Right. We all develop habits when we ride, just our body kind of gets in whatever posture. And, and somebody can tell you how to fix it. Like, a lot of people look down. And so then that causes, the rounding of the shoulders. And, you hear trainers all the time say, draw your shoulders back. And until you kind of understand why you're drawing your shoulders back, and you've done it in yoga poses where it just feels natural to be open through the chest and be able to breathe, it really makes a difference, and it's a hard thing for me because I see so many people, you'll spend a fortune on training your horse and going to clinics and getting massage for your horse, acupuncture, supplements, whatever, but you forget yourself, and how much of a role that your body plays in how your horse moves. And my hope is to, even if it's just one person becomes more body aware and can help their horse, because really why I do this isn't necessarily to help the rider, but it's really to help the horse to be able to move more freely and comfortably, which then in turn makes it more fun for the rider.
Yeah, absolutely. We know how much more happy our horses are to move balanced and to feel not restricted while we're riding. And that so much of that comes from the rider and our own imbalances and asymmetries. And
it's that saying, like a horse can feel a fly, so they can feel that little bitty movement, that if we're shifting around in the saddle, that is a big movement to them. That makes a difference and can cause a lot of discomfort or tension in the horse.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that saying. I like that. A horse can feel a fly. That's so true. If they can feel that, then think about all the things they feel from us when we're sitting up there.
Yeah. It's kind of a little bit intimidating because then you think, oh my gosh, it's like every little movement I make, they notice.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about what you're doing now. So you're doing yoga specifically for equestrian folks?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I just do this kind of for fun. It is a business, but I really just want to get it out there to people and help them to discover this and find better ways to feel better in the saddle. So I have an online membership and I've made it really inexpensive because I want to make it accessible to everybody. I teach a couple of local classes. I teach one at a therapeutic riding center here in the area, and I teach to all abilities and ages. So there are people in the class who are able-bodied riders Some are parents of riders, some are the students themselves, some are in a wheelchair. I just try to adapt it all. It's a little chaotic, but try to adapt it so that everybody can get something out of the class. And I think it's really good for the parents and the students of all levels and abilities to be able to work together and see where we all have an ability. Like, it's not, people will come to me and say, I can't do yoga, I'm in a wheelchair. You absolutely can do yoga. Breathing is yoga, like teaching people how to breathe is a major part of yoga, and it can be transformational in your riding, even if you are in a wheelchair.
Yeah, my yoga instructor says all the time, if you're breathing and moving, you're doing yoga. So it can be anything you want it to be.
So it's like everybody can do it. And I don't care if all you can do is lift your hand up off, the side of your chair. That's something, and that's movement, and that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
The podcast is sponsored in part by
Equiforce. Equiforce is a database that allows you to track every facet of your organization, from horse, donor, and volunteer management to scheduling, grant tracking, incident reports, and tracking participant progress too. This is not a one-size-fits-all setup. Instead, Equiforce personally works with you to learn how your facility functions and takes note of your specific terminology so that they can create a unique system to match the needs of your organization. And of course, Equiforce provides an ongoing training and support so that your database can grow with you. Visit them at www.equiforce.com. That's EQUI-FORCE.com.
This episode is also sponsored in part by
Wooden Horse Corporation and the Equisizer. The Equisizer is a handcrafted, non-motorized mechanical horse used by equine-assisted service programs worldwide. The Equisizer requires no electricity, tools, or maintenance and can be used indoors or out for evaluations, warm-ups, stretching, mounting, dismounting practice, and volunteer training, fear, and build confidence with students, clients, and volunteers. It can easily carry the weight of 2 adults, offering the unique option to ride tandemly. To learn more about the Equisizer, visit equisizer.com. That's EQUICIZER.com.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, besides working with my own horses. And I teach a couple clinics, in-person clinics here where we'll do yoga on the mat, and then we'll do yoga on horseback.
I was going to ask you if you do any yoga on horseback and kind of what you feel like is obviously the difference is the horse, but what do you see?
Right. And so really, the people on their horses are in their saddle, they have their helmets on, and you see my pictures, and I do some where I'm bareback and without a helmet, and that's just for picture's sake. That's not, what I'm necessarily doing, and that's not what I'm teaching. Everyone has to wear a helmet. And we focus a lot on, I guess it would be kind of a moving meditation where if I'm one-on-one with somebody, I can lead the horse, the rider can close their eyes, and we just talk through like a body scan of the rider and then a body scan of the horse to start to link, when the person's eyes are closed and they really go in and can feel their horse. And then you really start to notice, okay, the right leg is moving forward, then you start to notice those shifts in the horses a little bit more and what your hips are doing. And then the poses on horseback are nothing crazy. Nobody's standing on a horse. We're not doing down dog on a horse by any means. You're sitting in your saddle. And it's more of just ways for people to discover that they can move a little bit more, to find where they're stiff, and kind of some exercises, poses that they can do on their own, then at home before they ride. Mm-hmm. So it's really just exploring your body a little bit on a horse and not being so like rigid we're riding, we're walking, we're trotting, we're cantering.
Mhm.
We're just going to sit on our horse and move. And then we may walk and move and notice that.
And I feel like that is great too, because that builds more of that connection and awareness with your horse and your body, you know, and how they can move together as one. And I don't know that riders, we take enough time, you know, even during warm-ups, you know, where we're walking or we're doing whatever we're doing to warm our horses up before we ride, but really taking a minute to feel and get grounded, you know, within our saddle and with our horse.
Right. Like my horses now, I ride bitless. I have no need for a bridle because my body's become so much more effective. And I do stop a lot and just breathe. Like we'll just do some stuff and then I'm like, okay, let's just stand here and I'll relax and let my horse relax and wait for those deep, you know, when you start to feel those deep breaths and they're starting to lick and chew and relax, you know, and just kind of hang out for a minute or two and just kind of reset and then start over.
Yeah, I'm sure your horses appreciate that a lot too.
Yeah, I think that's something that we forget a lot when we ride. It's just kind of like we go through the motions, you know, we warm up, we walk, we trot, we canter, and we work on, you know, lateral movements or whatever, or if we show, you know, whatever we're working on, jumping, and then we cool out and we get off, you know, and there's so much more that give the horses a little bit of time to just be, you know, with you and breathe with you.
Mm-hmm. So when you work with equestrians through yoga and through all of this process, do you find a lot of common threads or, you know, commonalities between some of the equestrians you work with?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I really think 99.9% of people come to me and say it's their hip. But then when I see them actually do yoga, it's really more riders have upper body problems than have hip problems.
Interesting.
And I mean, like they are just tight and stiff in the shoulders, and you know that's going to really reflect. You know, if your upper body's like, you know, immobile, it affects your whole body. So yeah, definitely the upper body is where I see the most extreme things. And trainers seem to have it worse. That it's like the longer you ride, the worse your upper body gets for whatever reason, or especially if you ride young horses, because then you kind of brace a little bit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's something that we could all do right now while we're listening to help us with our upper body mobility? I feel like I need some of that today too.
Well, it's one, like, okay, everybody's sitting in their chair and you slouch. I mean, it's just natural.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it right now in my chair.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just like scoot yourself forward in your chair just a little bit so your back's not supported, and then just pull your shoulders back so they're lined up over your hip. And then just kind of roll your shoulders and you'll feel if you're kind of tight or you're kind of loose, just circling your shoulders. And then tuck your chin just a little bit and draw your head back so you have a nice line like up from your hip to the shoulder to the top of the head. Another thing I really work on, so I'm also in a 500-hour training now to, it's infusing Tai Chi and Qigong into yoga. So it's a lot more of finding ease in the movement and just being more like loose and moving with your breath. So another thing you can do and sitting in your chair is just inhale and just let your arms kind of float up above your head. Don't push them up, just let them float up. And then just breathe there and then bring your palms together over your head and exhale and just draw your palms down towards your heart. And keep your shoulders drawn back. And just take a deep breath. And exhale and just sigh it out. Breathe one more time deep into your belly. Then exhale, sigh it out. And then you can release your arms out to your sides. You can't really see me. And just sort of shake them loose. Just let your body be loose and flexible. And then you can just try to stay seated in that posture for a little bit if you can. But it's just something like when you're sitting at your desk chair, every once in a while, just check in with yourself and, scoot forward and not lean back in your chair. But I like I like to keep it simple.
Just
and
that
really
simple
breathing.
Just that simple chest opener and like taking those deep breaths to really feel like from your belly. Like I feel so much more open, especially through like my collarbones. And I could even feel like my sternum, like my ribs almost separate and like
it just lifts.
Yeah.
And you can do, and to do that on your horse, it's like, you can do that every 5 minutes on your horse if you want. Yeah. So that's just a simple little thing anybody can do anytime.
So if people want more of that and want to explore more of what yoga has to offer for equestrians, where can they find you, Alison?
So my website is equiharmonywellness.com. And I also am on Facebook and Instagram. And I do have a Facebook group associated with my business site. And in the group, I come in and do some short life practices. I talk a little bit more about anatomy. I can just feel like I can go a little deeper and people can get a little bit more out of that than just by looking at my site.
I think what's unique, especially for everyone who's listening now, is just that it's helpful that you are an equestrian yourself and that it's, geared toward, every yoga session you go to, whether you go to someone who's experienced with equitation or not, you would benefit from. But I think it's especially interesting that you do because we can tie some of these things back to riding and about that type of positioning. And that knowledge is helpful, especially for maybe some equestrian folks that aren't so sure about embarking on this yoga journey.
Yeah, and yoga it doesn't have to be hard. It's meant to be easy and make you feel good. The type of yoga I teach is a little bit different in that I incorporate the principle of Tai Chi in making it soft and movable and easy and really just moving with your breath. And you can do that in all aspects of your life. It doesn't have to be isolated to yoga. And it's interesting because I've come across riders who do yoga who never even thought of, oh, wow, yoga might actually help my riding. And, they just didn't put it together. But it seemed to me, it was just kind of a natural fit or natural evolution, I guess.
I can't say enough about that. I think that especially when we get down to really wanting to know more about our horses and be more in tune with our horses and the way they feel and not just getting out there and riding and, going through that process. I think it's important to slow down and connect with them, even, on the ground and that sort of thing. And yoga has really taught me to slow down and be in tune with my own body. And once you're in tune with yours, you can be in tune with other beings as well, which I think is only going to help us.
Right. Yeah. The horses definitely feel it. If you're breathing nice and calmly, then they're going to breathe calmly. If they're, and then it's like you have that tool when they start to get anxious about something and you sort of feel them tighten and tense, the best thing you can do is let your body just really relax and try to slow down your breathing because they will pick up on that.
Yes, I've been working with, I have a 3-year-old. And so we've been working a lot through when you feel scared, I cannot feel scared at the same time. And I do a lot
and
of
even if you have to say it in your head, it's like your mantra, I'm not afraid. I am not afraid.
Yes. So I do a lot of the, it's like, I don't know what the yogi term for it is, but I think it's like 7, breathe in for 7, hold at the top, and then let go for 7 or whatever that is. And I stole that from yoga, and that helps me almost immediately. My brain is just washed with feel like Zen. And I'm like, okay, we're all going to be okay. And so
I did that with my young horse, when I would feel him get tense, it's like, okay, I have to stop and just like let my body just like be like a rag doll sitting up here and try to have no tension anywhere in my body that will feed into his tension. And then, he would step off and be completely calm and relaxed, but it's like a conscious effort. Now it's a little bit more of a habit because I've been doing it for so long, but it's something everybody can do.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's hard to practice that in the moment when it's happening. So as like for me to practice it on the mat, in my living room and practice that state of mind is much easier to do so that I can apply it later when I need it.
Right. And that's the point of like having a regular yoga practice, then that breathing and that ease and that calmness just becomes part of who you are. And it's something that you can get back to really easily in other situations.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting a little close on time here. It's been so much fun. Do you have any advice for people or anything you want to part our audience with?
I guess I would just say, take some time with your horse and just breathe. You don't have to be on them. You can just go stand in their stall with them or out in the pasture with them and just slow down your breathing and just notice them and notice their breath and notice how after a little bit of time they'll start to sync up, your breath and your horse's breath. And you'll just see them like visibly relax. And that's a special moment. And that's a moment that I hope everybody takes time to do at least once in a while.
Yes, we all need that right now. Our horses too.
Yes.
All right. Well, I wrap up every one of my podcasts for this season with the same question. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what is your why, Alison? Why do you keep doing what you're doing? And why does yoga stay such a passion for you?
Well, for me, yoga brought me back to riding at a point when I never thought I would ride again because my body was such a mess. But my overall why is because I want every horse to feel comfortable and happy and move without tension. And yeah, I just want to make horses happier. And this is sort of an indirect way of doing that.
I think that applies so much to the field that we're in as well, just because lesson horses and horses that work in therapy programs, and those can be stressful situations sometimes. They love their jobs, but they also carry a fair amount of baggage with all of that as well. So it's even, more almost important for people in our field to think about those horses and letting them relieve some stress. And like you said, just take time to breathe with them so they can be happiest in their jobs too.
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with us today. I know you're a busy lady, so.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to, I go way back with Hetra. So,
yeah. Well, for everyone listening, I'll link all of Alison's information in the show notes below. So go check her out on Facebook and Instagram and her website as well. Thanks, Alison.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode. Until the next one launches, stay connected to our community by joining the Not Just a Pony Ride Facebook group. There, we share exclusive educational content, answer your questions, and review new and exciting developments for the EAS community. Don't forget, if you have suggestions for future episode topics or a lead on a great guest that you think our audience would enjoy, click on the link in the show notes or visit us at hetrauniversity.org. This podcast is presented by Hetra University, an educational arm of the Heartland Equine Therapeutic Riding Academy. Hetra University's mission is to provide high-quality educational offerings to our participants and the EAS community. If you'd like to help us work toward our mission, you can make a donation by visiting us online at hetra.org. Again, I can't thank you all enough for helping Hetra change lives one stride at a time.